Alright, welcome to Princess Royal Part 2 tutorial. Not a whole lot to talk about except for a few parts, so let's just kind of jump into it, yeah? You can see that I've made a version of this with Tab, and you'll be able to find this on Canvas here in a couple days. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory what's going on here. The thing you'll probably be most likely to mess up is not playing those as F sharps. But now we have the tab to kind of let us know that, hey, that's F sharp. We should play on the 4th fret, not the 3rd. I think there's not much to say until... where's that part that keeps coming up in class? That I never hear what I want to hear. Where is that part? There it is, right here. Right before B. You guys are so massively important here. And maybe I'm just not hearing it because you're feeling a little bit awkward about that sort of big jump between the 4th string and the 2nd string in terms of plucking. So maybe, have your thumb play that E. And again, we are at measure 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, I'm sorry, 8. We're at measure 8 here. So thumb. Those 3 notes are so important. You end the phrase, and if those don't come out beautifully, then it kind of sounds not so great. And then you're in the new phrase, the G to A. So I want you in general to bring the volume level down. Like this is sort of the accent, and then this one's going to be much quieter, the little B. So like boom, bee, ba. Excuse my terrible singing, but that really needs to happen, and it is just not happening with enough consistency. So if I could tell you anything is massively important, it's right there. You are playing this in first position, so I mean everything sits under the fingers pretty well. If it's a 2nd fret note, it's going to be played with the 2nd finger. Yeah, that would be right there, measure 3. And then that part that we were just talking about. So then it basically repeats. Really not much to say here other than be careful about your notes. Be careful that you're playing the correct ones. I think with this tab, you'll pretty much be certain that you're playing the correct notes if you follow and kind of cross-check what you're doing with what this is telling you to do. I think really it's not until C that we start to really see some movement and some tricky things. So this is still in first position, though. I can tell you right here that playing that D with your thumb is going to be very helpful. Okay, so maybe you should be having your thumb. I'm going to write something. So PX4. This means, and this is not something you see a lot. This is my own language to myself. That means have my thumb rest on string 4. Usually if you're talking about a string, you'll have a number with a circle in it. That tells you string 4. Well, I just took the circle, expanded it, and put the PX to mean thumb rests on string 4. So, if you had... let me show you. If you have your thumb resting on string 4, it's just right there. So, that's really kind of a handy place to keep it. And, of course, having a decent right hand strategy for this run is really helpful. We're just going to do old school M-I, 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 M-I. That will be sufficient. All the way throughout. I mean, you can count on it. If you do this every time this way, now I maybe hit this note with my thumb. That B. And possibly this as well. Now, these are suggestions. You don't have to do it, but it really makes it sound better. I'm starting at C. 1, 2, take 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So now I know these are quickly moving, but I mean, I'm in first position. Now that last B I just hit occurs at 17, 18, 19, 20 measure, 20 beat 3. Here's both hands. So similarly to how I had my thumb resting on the 4th string at the beginning of this line, I might, at some point around here, I might rest my thumb on the 5th string, just for added stability. Not necessary, and it's not exactly obvious when you would do it, but then if you do, well, I mean, I kind of do it between the E and the D here. There I just drew the arrow. That's when I put my thumb down on the 5th string. You don't have to do it, but it does help. And let's follow this through the next page, shall we? Well, you're pretty much home free. I mean, nothing's too bad here. And you'll repeat back to letter C. Sorry. Okay, so a lot of this, I mean, just going to be completely honest, a lot of this is just being very careful about playing the right notes. Really, until the very end, you're in first position almost the whole time. In fact, you are in first position the whole time until the end. So be very careful. This tab, I mean, use this tab because it's telling you exactly where these notes are in case you are unsure. If you follow these along and just generally alternate your fingers, you know, you'll be fine. There's not much to say except for to be careful there at measure 19 at C. You really want to practice that part because you're playing together with part 1, so it'll sound like together. It sounds kind of nice. So please do look at that part quite a bit. Now, the only thing left to talk about really is the final bit of the song, because it really isn't until measure 30-31 that you have anything that's not in first position. I mean, up until now, we've been in first position. So here, right at third, what did I just say a second ago? I think I said the wrong thing. 38, 39, 41. So 41, I'm sorry, 39 is when we have our, nope, you guys, I was right the first time. It's like 31. Okay, because it just repeats down there. So at 31, you're checking along. So D starts. Here becomes D. Okay, right here. This is the sensitive spot. This is where we're shifting. It's kind of cool. We're using this first string open to ring out, and that's what gives us time to shift. This will be with your pinky on 2/8, right? I mean, that's why they're in tab. You see an 8, and it's not a 3. 8 on the second line, not 3 on the first line. Take your time to get to that. I mean, you can go like this. Use all the time you have. 1, 2, 3. So as soon as you hit, well, I say use all the time you have. As soon as you hit this open E, move. And I don't mean like jump. I don't mean rush. I don't mean race. I just mean start moving then. 2, 3, 4. See, I didn't have any stress whatsoever. That's plenty of time, even if you speed it up way faster than it needs to go. Right? So you are going to be in 5th position. This is solid 5th position. And what I mean by solid or true or any of these other words I might use to describe 5th position in this way is that it is by the rule book. Nothing deviates. So this will be with your pinky. This will be with your first finger on the 1st string 5th fret. Back to your pinky for the 2nd string 8th fret. Back off to your 3rd finger for the 7th fret. I mean, these are just the hard and fast rules of 5th position. Well, really of any position. I mean, your position is based on where your first finger is. So if your first finger is on the 5th fret, well, it's in 5th position. If it's on the 1st fret, it's in 1st position. 3rd fret, 3rd position, and so on. So if that's the case, then each adjacent finger, meaning each finger that is next to the other, takes the adjacent fret. So your first finger takes 5, your 2nd finger takes 6, your 3rd finger takes 7, and finally your pinky, your 4th finger, takes 8. So this is strictly following the rules. We could talk a little bit about the rhythm, but you've probably heard part 1 go ba dee da ba ba be. That may not trip you up as much. I mean, intellectually you may not understand it yet, but I don't think you'll have any trouble feeling it. So then the question is, when do we shift back, right? And here's your answer. You shift back here. We're, again, going to use an open string to give ourselves time to set our middle finger down on string 3 fret 2, right? So open, shift, 2, and that's down in 1st position. Let's look at that big. Here we are at measure 34. Here we go, measure 35 with that open, and then I hit the open B and I move down, set my 2nd finger on the 3rd string, 2nd fret, finish it off with that G, and then there's a little tag after that. So shifting on an open string is like the best thing you could possibly do as a guitar player, because it lets the instrument ring out in the note it's supposed to. That gives you enough time to go where you need to go and get there before that note is stopped ringing. So that's why it's fingered this way. It's a good fingering. So the rest of that line, all in 1st position. So I mean, just again, not a whole lot to talk about. More just you just need to work it out, especially now that you have the tab. So 3, 2, 0, 3, 1 on the 2nd string, back to the 1st string open, back to the 2nd string, bum, beam, bum. I mean, again, not much to say, except for be careful about those notes. So we do the same thing. You have an exact repeat of what you just did, the thing we just went over. Excuse me. So not much need to go over that twice. I think the most important thing you can do is double check the tab, especially for your position. And then when you're in position, I should undo that. When you're in your position, you really need to respect like the finger numbers, because they're all straightforward. I mean, they all follow the rules of good, position playing, I guess you can say. There are plenty of reasons why people would want to break those rules, and we will. And other parts do break those rules in this song, but you don't. So don't. And just enjoy that it's straightforward and not super difficult. But it is, I say that. It is challenging if you've never played in 5th position before, and you haven't. So it's your first time. Do go ahead and check this tab, and again, be mindful to look at both parts. If you see the tab doing something funny, look up to see which fingers to use, which position you're in, just to double check. If you follow these things, I mean, I don't think you'll have any trouble with a little bit of practice. The biggest thing to do would be practice those shifts. So, I'm sorry. I'm getting up to the shift. I would play those 4 notes. I kind of, you almost, I mean, I'm going to exaggerate what I do. Did you hear that little slide sound? I almost do that to safely and securely get to 5th position. It kind of helps get a little traction to keep your finger close to the string. Look, the most dangerous part you can ever be in guitar playing is your hands are away from the strings. Because then you lose your point of reference, your frame of reference, and you might think, oh, I can get back easily. Maybe. But if the guitar ever so slightly moves one way or the other, maybe not. And in moments where we shift, like going like that, those moments are your most vulnerable because the guitar is subtly going to move as you release pressure. Now, the idea is that you're using another part of your body, even subconsciously, to compensate for that, to keep it still. Can't count on that. It may not happen in the heat of the moment. So you best practice this slowly and intentionally. It's not a race. I often go as long as I can and just feel every bit of that motion. Because the truth is it starts here and it stops here. And you can, and you can calibrate that feeling. So you remember your body, you may not consciously know what that feels like, but your body knows what it feels like and it remembers how to do that. That's what we're doing when we're practicing, is we're coding our bodies to behave in a way that we want them to. So that's why I don't just do this over and over again, because that's not going to do you any good. It'll actually hurt you in the long run. All that matters is that here's your note, second note, this is our destination. You won't even have to think about it after a while. It'll just happen. So that shift occurs in the same spot both times it happens. So follow the fingering, follow the tab, follow the rhythm, you'll be fine. The last thing I really want to talk about for part 2 is that rhythm. Ba, 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 ba. So what's happening, I mean, you might remember that, 2 quarter notes make up a half note, right? 2 quarter notes equals 1 half note in terms of total value. Well, and you may know that 2 eighth notes equals 1 quarter note in total terms of total rhythmic value, right? So maybe some of you know that 4 16th notes equals 1 quarter note, okay? So here we're dealing with a dotted eighth note to a quarter note. Boy, howdy, we haven't even talked about dotted quarter notes, and we're jumping straight over to dotted eighth notes. What's wrong here? Well, we'll just, it is what it is. Let's just remind ourselves of what the dot does first. What the dot does is adds 50% of the note's value back into itself. So I'm going to say dot equals half plus. I mean, that doesn't make any sense out of context, but so you've got to think, what is half of an eighth note? Well, half of an eighth note is a 16th note. 16th notes move twice as quickly as eighth notes. So we use syllables to subdivide because it's too hard to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 all the time. So there's 2 different systems. You can use ti, te, ta. So 1, ti, te, ta. Better make that a little more evenly spaced, huh? 1, ti, te, ta. Right? 1, 2, 3. Like, that's 4 16th notes. So a dotted eighth note receives the equivalent of 3 16th notes. 1, ti, te, ta, ta. So that can be a nightmare if you're going at a quick tempo and you're not quite sure how to feel that out. But at this very slow tempo, I'm going to show you a way you can think about this. I'm going to go to 60 beats per minute just for the sake of this being very slow and easy to follow. So here is just the quarter note, 3, 4. The goal is to think about it in terms of a 16-note subdivision. So 1 ti, te, ta, 2 ti, te, ta, 3 ti, te, ta, 4 ti, te, ta. Well, that can be difficult. Well, how about let's have just the eighth note first. So now we're at this. 1 te, 2 te, 3 te, 4 te. So, I mean, we could rewrite this rhythm to look like this, and no one would hardly even know we did anything different. We could just take out the dot and just make it 2/8. Did you see what I did there? I just took away the dot and made it 2/8 notes. So instead of, it would just be ba 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 ba, just like all even. 4 te, 1 te, 2 te, 3, and I've seen some versions of this piece like that. What we do when we add that dot and put the 16th note in there is we subdivide. So there's our 8th notes. Let's subdivide. Let's do one step further. Let's get the 16th notes. 2 t teta, 3 t teta, 4 t teta, 1 t teta. So here we go. Sorry, I just toppled over. I think I'm working with. Here we go. 2 t teta, 3 t teta, 4 t teta, 1 t teta, 2 t teta, 3. So if you count to 3 t teta, like so, like 1 t te, your ta is gonna be the a. So 1 t teta, 2 te. That's you could also go 1 e and that's another very common. Generally speaking, t teta works really well for slow tempos when you have time to enunciate like every little ta t ta. They're all harsh syllables. But when you're sort of at a quicker tempo, 1 e and people do it different ways, but 1 e and 1 e and a 2 e and it's much easier. There's no harsh syllables. Everything flows together. So 1 e and so 1 e and 2 te 3. I always like t te da. I don't know why. 1 e and 2 and 3, and now the 8th note will be and 1 e and 2 and 3. Of course, you can do it the whole time, but there's no really need to. 1 e and 2 e and 3 e and 4 e and. That's what's happening mathematically. So in closer to tempo, I'm going to take off the subdivisions. 1, 2. So you can feel like ba, 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 ba. No matter what, you need to be at the next big beat at 2. So this whole ba, ba, that all happens within the framework of beat 1. So even if you don't feel very clear about that, just play the first note. Like literally, you could just play the G. And in fact, I would encourage you to do this if you're very confused about that rhythm. Just play the G as a quarter note. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this. In fact, let me alter the music to show you exactly what I'm talking about. You could erase this. Just erase it. I mean, let's just experiment here. Erase this. Let's have no memory that like this was ever anything other than a quarter note. Yeah, I mean, I could get real OCD and try to make this work, but I'd spend all day doing it because I'm terrible at drawing lines. Anyway, this could be 1, 2, te, 3. So instead of ba, 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 it could be ba, 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 ba. Just quarter note. G, G, F sharp, E. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with, sorry, my brain just like completely left my body. There is nothing wrong with sort of shrinking our work. We don't want to be adding stuff, but we can certainly take stuff away. And that leaves plenty of room for people that maybe do feel a little more confident to have space to play that thing that maybe you don't feel so confident about. Like I said, there's really nothing wrong with that. Sorry, I'm getting a call. There is nothing wrong with that at the end of the day. That is okay, and I would encourage that if you're experiencing that issue. Just pretend you don't even see the other things. Just play the quarter note on the downbeat and then go on with beat 2, just like we have written. So I'm going to undo that, and you'll see it look like it normally should, right? So just look at the G. Boom. And you'll have it. I mean, it takes a lot of the complicated business away. And there's really no difference in terms of... there's really just no difference. Anyway. So, yeah. I don't know what more to say about this, really. I mean, part 2 is pretty straightforward, minus those 5th position bits. And then, of course, that little rhythmic thing. But you'll hear part 1 playing that, in their... From the very beginning of the piece, here, ba ba ba, be ba ba ba, ba ba, be ba ba ba. You're going to be hearing that, so I don't think it'll be that problematic for you to do. It might be difficult to understand, like, intellectually, but it's not difficult to feel. That's a good thing. Okay. Well, in summary, just really watch the notes carefully. I mean, most of it is very straightforward. Just being very careful will mean that you'll be okay, and spend the majority of your practice time um, at letter C, like measure 19 with that run, because it is so essential that you and part one are like in lockstep together at that point, because it sounds really nice. And of course, the shifts we've talked about at like measure 31, and then when that measure comes back and 39 here. Oh, you couldn't see that, but I'm telling you, measure 39. So, anyway, okay. Well, if I could think of more helpful things, I would tell you, but you just got to put in the work. This tab, I hope, will be helpful to you, especially if you feel a little insecure about your notes. I think this will pretty much solve the issue. So, if you have any more questions or if something isn't clear enough, please do reach out to me. I'd be happy to hear and answer your questions. Anyway, good luck, and thank you for playing this part. It's an important part. It may not seem like it's the most important part, but you have some moments that can just really add a tremendous amount of beauty to the overall performance. And without that sort of nuance, it's just not as beautiful. So we need you part two. We need you bad. Anyway, I'll see you in class. Thanks again. This has been, well, it's been fun for me. Oh, we're not done yet. Sorry.